to address a very interesting topic about smart cities. Through this session, we will explore different aspects of smart cities and solutions to improve quality of living for residents, yet to maintain fast decisions that are resilient to social and economic changes. Through a span of 60 minutes, we shall answer questions and tap into local and international expertise and best practices. My guests today have a vast background from different sectors at real estate and technology solutions, both from private and public sectors. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our guest for today, Ms. Jena Ladhani, CBRE Global Workplace Solutions Manager and Director to Saudi Arabia. Mr. John Seed, the Group Director for Strategy and Development at Riyadh. And last but not the least, Mr. Viktor Lechman, Real Estate Development and Smart Cities Entrepreneur. Welcome very much to the stage, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today. Perhaps before we start, we shed a light on a very interesting story which was being inspired by Mr. John yesterday, that Saudi Arabia have led the during the leadership of Saudi Arabia on G20 summit, promoted the smart cities and the technologies and put also a foundation, a cornerstone for interesting projects to come, like NEOM. And this will add us or lead us to a series of questions that we would love to hear from you guys. Sorry for interruption. Sorry for an interruption, just minor changes from the organizers. So we shall start by having a question. The first question, based on the story just mentioned, how do you see Saudi Arabia progress in the direction of building new cities since 2020? It's a floor discussion, so please give us your insights.
Shall I go first?
Please.
So I think, firstly, from my perspective, in 2019, just before Saudi Arabia took the presidency of the G20, already it was clear that Saudi Arabia had integrated a number of different, what you would call smart city initiatives. And I mean, at the time, the King Abdullah Financial District, for instance, was under development and pretty well under construction. And it was, and also the metro line and you know, all the smart applications that you would see around those sorts of systems were in train to go with those major infrastructure projects. But I think the interesting thing, certainly from my perspective, as representing the European Bank on the G20, was when Saudi Arabia took presidency. It was, as you'll remember, just at the start of COVID.
Right. And
this actually, COVID became the imperative to really accelerate smart city applications.
Mm-hmm.
The World Bank at the time, the World Bank obviously sits on the G20 as well. The World Bank at the time had evidence that cities that had more smart application and were more digitalized and more digitally aware were better able to deal with the COVID pandemic than those that were not.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's credit to the Saudi governance and the Saudi presidency of the G20 at the time that they basically stopped all of the work streams to concentrate on smart and digitalization, because that was the major imperative to try to get us through that horrible pandemic.
Right, well, COVID have changed a lot since then. Ms. Jena, any contribution?
Yes, no, thank you. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. I think following on from what John's saying, if we bring it to present day, it's very positive to see what focus there is on environmental, social governance and smart city focus, especially from a procurement perspective, from an operational perspective, and really there is not one business individual that I meet that isn't talking about smart cities, smart operational systems, smart solutions, smart technologies. It's really at the forefront of every conversation that I'm having, and that's inspiring, especially to be part of the Vision 2030 initiatives.
Awesome. Victor.
Today we're going to speak about smart cities, but I want to share my first experience when I landed to Riyadh last September. And actually before I landed to Riyadh, obtaining visa, it was so seamless experience. It was fully digital. It took me 1 hour to get my visa, and this was above all expectations. So this experience, and the experience is one of the major things in a smart city. It's a good point to start with.
Absolutely. Saudi Arabia has been doing great paradigm shifts, if I may, to digitalize everything and make the life easier for many, many people. But before we deep further into the discussion, let's lay a foundation and understanding about smart cities and why it's important for individuals, for residents of the cities, and who is the focal point. Again, this is a floor question, if I may.
My definition will be simple and brief. Smart cities is a concept when through technologies you connect residents, business owners, and government authorities to create the seamless experience and to minimize impact on environment. So simply like this.
Awesome.
For me, it's definitely about people. I think every business decision that we're making when it comes to smart cities is to do with our communities, what we're giving back to people, their environments. The built environment is being designed around how do we tackle the S in ESG, which is social. So definitely links on to what you're saying, and definitely you're asking who are we doing this for? It's for people, for sure, yes.
So I would agree with both my co-panelists here in terms of what they've said about people, but I think it's also important thinking about the economy of the city as well. From my experience of smart applications in cities, we often find in many cities that cities have become smart not because of government initiatives, but because the government has made data open source, and it's the private sector that has benefited from that data and has leapfrogged the city in terms of its smart maturity. Now, why would the private sector do that? The private sector is doing that for commercial reasons, because they get benefit from that. So cities can definitely benefit where government has strategies for developing smart, but a very quick way to become smarter and to achieve that smart maturity is if the government does have data where there's no sort of security issues, then why not make it open source? Why not make it available for so that the private sector can innovate with that data and provide benefit?
So smart cities is an application, if I would put it in this way, it's a blueprint to bring public and private partnership for improvement commercially and economically, and also socially and culturally. Well, but thinking a little bit deeper, what are the challenges? If I may address this question to Mr. Lechman, what are the challenges for smart cities?
I want to point out 3 challenges which I think we really need to focus on. The one is integrating advanced technologies in existing urban infrastructure, and this requires investments, talents, and best practices. And I want to emphasize on investments. These investments should have a clear vision on return, both as a public good and as economic impact. The second is cybersecurity and data privacy. Now, if we want to make a transaction We don't go to the bank, we make it electronically. But we want to be sure that our money is protected. Money is an asset, as well as our data. Data is an asset on all levels, on private, on corporate, on government. So they should be secured and protected. And the third is a public engagement. There are no smart and not smart people. We all are smart. But some people require more level of explanations and more training. So this training and explanation should be provided. Should be a vision that unites the majority of people. Why the smart city concept is beneficial for them and for society as a whole. I think, yeah, this is the main challenges and actually the way how to, the solution for these challenges.
Well said, Victor. I think what you have just mentioned about public engagement, how we can make every individual take part. Actually, this is what the Vision 2030 is all about, to make it focused around individuals, to be the drive for the economy and the society at large. My next question will be to Mr. Seed. What are the applications of smart cities you worked on during your post at the European Bank for Constructions and Development?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I think the applications we were looking at specifically were linked to the greening of cities, because this was part of the European Bank. This is the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, EBRD. They started in 2014 their Green Cities Initiative, and today they have 66 cities in their countries of operation that are part of that Green Cities Initiative. Now, it became very quickly apparent that smart applications can lead to significant sustainability benefits in these cities. In fact, there was a study that was done in the US, at the university in the US back in 2018, that found just by optimizing smart applications in infrastructure, cities can save between 15 and 20% carbon.
Okay.
And that is even before you start talking about taking people out of their cars and out of polluting forms of transport and putting them on public transport. This is just purely through the application of smart technologies. So, as an example, we were following the approach that had been adopted by Helsinki. Helsinki has decided that they want to be net zero by 2035, which is, many countries, many cities are looking at 2050. Some are looking at 2060. Helsinki's decided on 2035. So they basically decided that they needed to incorporate a number of different smart technologies to help them reduce their climate footprint significantly. They produced their climate atlas that looks at the digital twin of the entire city, that looks at basically energy usage and energy leakage, energy wastage from buildings. They found that something like 54% of the carbon in the city was coming from heating, from heat loss from buildings. And so they prioritized, from this digital twin, that's what they prioritized. But what Helsinki found, and this is very similar to the experience that I understand has been the case in Riyadh, is that a big bang approach to making cities smart sometimes doesn't work, because it's very hard to align all the stakeholders at city level behind it. It's better to actually start small on a district by district basis, on an application by application basis, get buy-in for that application, show the benefits to it, and then roll it out citywide. And this was very much the approach that EBRD has adopted, and it was interesting to hear earlier today that this has been the approach that's been adopted here in Riyadh.
Amazing. I love what you have just mentioned about the application, the waste management, but this will take us perhaps to a question about the facility management at the smart cities, and I will address my next question to Ms. Ladhani. I wish I pronounced your name correctly. Why is smart city management is important at the design level of smart cities?
Thank you. So Smart FM is all about increasing efficiency, operational reliability, but also, as the esteemed panel have said, all about carbon reduction and lowering the cost by connecting buildings. We do that through automation, IoT, artificial intelligence, and advanced analytics. one of the biggest advantages of smart facilities management is risk management. So you're able to virtually manage your assets. You have automated ways in which you can take care of both the hard and soft services that you provide in your buildings. And also making sure compliancy to ISO 27001. There's a number of different reasons. And then finally, cost management. If you know what's happening within your built environment, you can take care of it. And I think that's what we're finding within Riyadh, but also the other cities within Saudi Arabia. Smart FM is really something that everybody is excited about, because what then happens is everybody starts to look at things in much more of an intelligent way. So where we would normally have facilities managers taking care of buildings, they then become intelligent building managers. They then start to be uplifted in their career prospects and really what they're taking care of. And that then supports the economy and also people within the country. So from Smart FM, just taking care of your HVAC units or taking care of catering facilities, you then start really taking care of the people within your businesses. So I hope that answers the question.
Well, risk management, automated services, and cost management, or cost efficiency. Well, that perhaps will take us to another question to you, Ms. Ladhani.
Yes.
What are the benefits to be reflected at the smart cities at the planning phase? You know, we are already living in cities, so we want to shift the cities from our ordinary, normal, traditional way of living to a smart way. So we're also building new cities, and also we're building new buildings. So why it's important to consider facility management at the early stage of the planning?
Historically, what has happened is facilities management has been thought of towards the end, or once the building's built, and we need to now take care of the cleaning, or we should now be looking at security measures. But what we have found in other areas globally, and what we're doing here in KSA, is when we're working with the planners and at construction time, we're able to implement in a much more cost-effective and intelligent manner what exactly the priorities are. Every aspect of facilities management fits back to the UN SDGs, fits back to Saudi Arabia's green initiatives, and I think it's really important that facilities management is thought of right at the beginning. Many people think about it as when you buy something new, you always make sure that you're maintaining it correctly. It's the same as when you're taking care of your buildings. You want it to be that way. We've seen in the news many of the global companies also moving their regional headquarters, etc. We want to be able to provide facilities management from a global scale, global standards, governance and compliance. All of that happens by pre-planning and understanding the critical path. So the most important thing is understanding what the end goal is of your assets, and then incorporating the key stakeholders right at the beginning.
Is it more of a political? I mean, I know the smart cities is not a decision to be made at the company level, but also as a political level. So it's something that every stakeholder should be engaged, also at the planning level or strategy level.
It's actually strategy level is exactly that. So. Many of the C-suite leadership are taking into consideration what the impact on facilities management is when they are planning their construction. We also partner with a number of construction companies, because they're pulling us in right at the beginning to talk to the C-suite about how much will it cost to take care of this? Should we do it this way? Okay, what impact will that have on our employee engagement? How will we ensure, for example, we can bring people back into the office? All of these things are impacted through facilities management, because essentially managing the facilities is what keeps your people happy and in the office.
And of course, it has its own implications on the environment and the health in general.
Exactly.
Mr. Lechman, you've been working in Czech Republic, where you came from. And then in the region, during your expertise, what are the most successful and non-successful smart city solutions, or perhaps projects?
I think there's a safe way is to go with the nearest city to Riyadh, Dubai, where I also lived for 5 winters. And Dubai is a smart city. Dubai is super convenient city. And Dubai is able to give you this experience that you want to be there. From the moment you arrive to the airport and you go through the smart gates, then all the services are digital, laundry, delivery, you communicate with the government answer you in 24 hours, everything. You park your car, you do it digital, everything is digital. So this is an amazing way how they use advanced technologies to the existing urban infrastructure. You want to do sport, there are areas dedicated for sport, there are entertainment, so everything. And I think that Dubai is a great example of the smart city concept. And the negative example, I think that all cities that now called smart had in the beginning the negative example, because all of these cities made thousands of mistakes. This transformation is so huge that you make thousands of the mistakes. And those who were able to collect the feedback, those who were able to learn from their mistake, now they are benefiting from attracting talents and international business. So it's ongoing process everywhere. Some more lucky, some more integrating this concept faster, some cities slower, but it's a trend. So we're all going there.
So you're saying that Dubai have absolutely excelled in different applications, and there are other cities that have learned from the mistakes, and of course the factor of having more talents and more international businesses. That's what Saudi Arabia is particularly doing, migrating the world to Saudi Arabia. Mm-hmm. Well, my second question, or my next question, would be to Mr. Seed. What are the pros and cons for investment? You've been working at the bank, so you've done a lot of investments and a lot of analysis and figures, I believe. So what are the pros and cons for investment in smart city solutions?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think what you have to understand is that very often cities that are just starting on the pathway to developing smart applications, it's entirely possible that somebody senior in government or even the mayor of the city, they can go and visit a city that already is smart. Dubai was talking about it, for example, or you might think about somewhere like one of the German cities, or you might think about Singapore as a good example. Some of the Australian cities, very smart, okay? They might see the applications there and then come home and basically say, I want this or I want that application in our city, okay? And that's great, it's good, because you always need somebody in the city who's going to be a champion. And what we found at the European Bank was that if the mayor or somebody senior is the champion, then it's more likely that something's going to get done. But it has to be backed up by human resources in the city. Because one of the problems that we found was that, very often these applications can cost tens of millions of euros, if not hundreds of millions of euros, depending on what the application might be. If that's not backed by the maturity of the human beings involved in terms of knowledge of data collection, in terms of knowledge of storage of that data, in terms of the transmission of the data, in terms of the interpretation of the data, and then the security, as we talked about before, cybersecurity of the data, then the whole investment is under risk and can fail. There are many examples. There are just even cities like San Diego in the States that has got smart lighting around the city. Something, I think they spent $250 million on smart lighting. They don't use all the applications of the smart lighting today because of the issues. that have been brought with those applications, because they didn't have the maturity in the government and they didn't do enough investigation with the stakeholders to understand how that smart lighting could benefit the city. So this comes back to what I said earlier, that this is why it's important to do things, to start small and to grow big, from small beginnings, testing out with a small group of stakeholders if the application is going to be beneficial for the city, rather than going for the big bang hundreds of millions of approach, whereby you might find then that application hasn't been successful, and therefore it could be a wasted investment.
So if I understand you correctly, we're saying here that there must be up the top of the pyramid and the very bottom of the pyramids to work together towards this shift. But also we should start by small examples and then go to the big one, instead of starting something huge and be able to will not be able to deliver at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, one of the questions that we first asked, if we had a mayor of a city come to us and basically ask us to co-invest in a smart city application, one of the first questions we ask is, well, what data do you have in your city, and how are you collecting that data? And very often they have no idea. And so we will then go and do a survey to establish the maturity of the city in terms of what data they have at their, that's available to them, and how they're collecting that data. Very often they have no idea how much data is available.
Well, I'll ask you the ssame question. What are the data and how to collect the data?
So lots of the different applications that they might have in terms of things like transport applications, in terms of things like bill payment applications, in terms of mobile applications around the city, it's entirely possible that they're sat on a vast wealth of data that they can use. They can collect data very easily. They can install cameras. They can use drones to collect data to create digital twins. There are lots of different ways that they can start collecting the data. But then that needs to be stored securely. It needs to be interpreted, because it's a garbage in, garbage out scenario with this data. And then you start on a road to be able to really benefit to providing a digital service that really benefits the citizens of the city once you're acting on that data.
Awesome. So there must be an infrastructure of data collection and that data hub.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, my next question to Mr. Lechman. How is building information modeling is crucial for achieving leadership in energy and environmental design certification?
Yeah, thank you, Mohammed. What is building information modeling? Building information modeling is actually the platform, the data-rich platform that connects designers, architects, engineers, and contractors together. It's actually their workplace. And LEED is a leadership in energy and environmental design. It's a certification system. So LEED is like a compass that shows us the goal. And BEAM is a facilitator of the journey, how to achieve this goal. And if you follow the lead, the guidance, and you from each achievement you earn the points, and after enough of points you get certain rating, then you have your building, your project is sustainable. So the technologies already exist. Implementation of technologies is where the problem is, but technologies already exist to make it happen.
Implementation. Well, actually, it's more or less than like if you have a dream, or if you have a plan, you want to build a house, you dream about it, you know what you want to do, but when it comes to implementation, it's very hard to do it. You need someone who's expert. That's why we need talent and we need investment. Please.
So, for those of you who have iPhones, you may know that little thing is LiDAR. And you can use this there's now applications where you can use this in your house. You can do a LiDAR survey of your house, and you can create a digital twin or a BIM model of your house, and then you can basically design, you can look at different designs and you can play with it. There are so many applications that can do this now. The important thing that relating to what you said about BIM is using it in the right way, right? I would believe that every single new building contract that's been let in Saudi Arabia today is specifying a BIM model, a building information management model, a BIM model. There are 3 dimensions in BIM, which are your 3 dimensions in space. But it is possible to have a 7-dimensional BIM model. The problem is that if you don't specify 7-dimensional BIM, you won't get the benefits of it. The 6th dimension of BIM is sustainability, and the 7th dimension of BIM is asset tagging. So if you're going to use the BIM model into the future to get the benefits of sustainability and to get the full benefits of optimized operation and maintenance of the facility, we should be specifying 6D and 7D BIM, which I'm not sure is happening in Saudi Arabia right now.
Well, I'm sure there will be a lot of news to hear very much sooner. Well, the gentleman, I mean, like, if you have any question, please feel free to interrupt us, and the organizers will bring the microphone to ask questions for my panelists over here. The next question, to Ms. Jena. What advice can be given to support facility management at smart cities to meet sustainable goals and efficiency?
Thank you. So there's 10 suggestions that I have, which I can go through with you, and all of them are in relation to not just smart systems and intelligent systems, but also sustainability. It's about having a single source of truth and project and asset integration. And what we mean by that is, just like both panelists were also saying, it's about the data integrity. Everybody has data, there's data everywhere. But it's about having those subject matter experts who can tell you what that means and then provide you with the value from that. And that then moves into costs and solutioning and quality performance. I'm sure you've all had your KPIs and SLAs and all the different various ways in which quality is measured in your day-to-day lives. And having facilities management for your built environment do that for you. And then adding on sustainability through programs such as EcoVadis and EmitWise, which actually tell you what Scope 3 emissions are coming out of your built environment and then what you can do about that. I think is very crucial for us to move forward, which then moves into innovation and technology. So once you know what your problem statements are, how do you then work with, say, third-party suppliers to move you into the forefront of innovation? Risk and compliance is something at the forefront of every leader's mind, and definitely at the C-suite level. And then it moves into safety, then into sustainability, and then the net promoter score and engagement scores, which is really, again, another strategic element to decision making. How do your buildings support your employees?
Well, thank you very much. I love the idea of the creativity and innovation. I'm a big believer when it comes, we need a lot of creativity and innovation in general when it comes to problem solving. Back to you, Mr. Steed. This is a very important question. Big, but you have only 2 minutes. Data hubs are crucial for smart cities and data-driven decisions, of course. What are the main elements for building data centers and how we can engage the public to feed the data centers with data?
Well, that's an interesting one because it comes down to really where you want your data to go. Because effectively, if you want, you could just use Amazon Web Services, and it doesn't matter where the data center is. It doesn't have to be in the country necessarily. However, a lot of countries, a lot of cities.
But isn't there a question of privacy here,
exactly,
national security?
This is what I'm coming on to. Yeah, this is what I'm coming on to. So it comes down to if you're like storing things like water supply and rainfall data, then you would argue, well, that's not really that secure data. But if all of a sudden, if it's PPI type data for personal information, then yes, there's going to be issues there because there's real risk that can be hacked. And that's where secure data centers come in. So governments really need to decide as to whether they want to build their own data centers, their own secure, and these can be from small secure server rooms within their offices, or it can be separate data centers, or whether they're going to put their data in the cloud, which they might argue is less secure from a national data security perspective. The key thing from a data center perspective is that they don't take up massive amounts of room, but they do take up a lot of energy. So, you know, when you start talking about sustainability, you need to be thinking about powering these things from renewable energy, ideally. Otherwise, there can be investment issues with that because they do suck so much energy. Then, if a data center is going to be used for something like blockchain mining, then you really start ramping up the energy consumption because these things have to be cooled significantly.
I think I can also
Yes, please.
just add to that as well, because then when it comes to data centers, then it comes down to, is it working?
Yeah, it does.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Then it comes down to the facilities management again. So you're talking about cooling and energy and sustainability. Well, all of that then comes down to the running of the data center. So it just, hopefully this panel shows you that actually from all of the strategic conversations all the way down to the operational level, smart conversations are happening every single point, and having sustainability at the heart of that as well.
Thank you very much for your contribution. Back to you, Mr. Lechman. What are the challenges implementing leadership in energy and environment design?
Actually,
Again, the last questions are big, I know, but we are running out of time, so please be short as much as you can. Thank you.
John mentioned that the companies don't use the beam for sustainability, and there are challenges using beam for sustainability. And I want to give one particular example that's very close to our business. So imagine the 30,000 meters multifunctional building. You have a commercial, you have a retail, you have a cinema, a sports center, and investor, developer, the idea was to make it a LEED certified, sustainable. So he had an in-house team of BEAM specialists without experience in LEED, but BEAM specialists. So they hire a specialized consulting company. They create amazing LEED compliant design. But then, when the implementation happened, construction phase, it started to be a problem. They took the sophisticated heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system from LG, but because they didn't have enough time, they start to install it by themselves. The result was, instead of decrease in energy efficiency, it was a high increase. And only after 1 year they found out that actually they didn't connect the sensors with the main computer correctly. They found it in 1 year.
Wow.
And this LEED or sustainability, it's a sufficient, it's a comprehensive technologies. In order to install them, you need to have a trained people. You need to have a professionals in this. So to have a top consultants on the design stage is not enough. You need people on the side. The engineers on the side, they should be familiar with a sustainable approach. And then you need to make a planning in advance, because if you want to purchase these sustainable materials, sustainable technologies, you need to do it in advance, way in advance, purchase as materials and technologies, as well as installation. Otherwise, it's going to happen, what happened to this project. It was a two-way, to continue with a LEED, but it's going to be not on time and not on budget, or to be nice, but not LEED compliant, but to be on time and budget. So the developer at this moment made a decision to be not LEED compliant. But the developer made, analyzed the mistakes, learned the lesson, and in the next stage, in the next project, he started to be much more careful in choosing during the tenders with whom give the general contract, and start to hire the consultants on each stage of implementation. This is actually the real case, real life example.
Well, I know what you're saying when you say it, finding a problem with the sensors takes them, finding a problem with the sensors took them 1 year to find that. I had the same issue finding a semicolon in the code. But one question less than a minute for each of you. The future versus our personal life. Lady first.
The future versus our personal life.
Yes.
I think it's smart, and I think it's definitely with environmental, social, and governance at the heart of it.
Thank you.
I think there's definitely going to be a move in Saudi Arabia towards more sustainable solutions. There has to be. I mean, Vision 2030 is asking for this, and that therefore there's a real movement towards in that direction. And if smart has got a key part to play in that move, then it will be adopted. I think we're going to start seeing that more, hopefully.
Victor?
I want to sum up with the secret sauce of smart city. Yeah? The secret sauce of smart city. You take investments, towns, best practices, and vision, and if it equal seamless experience, it's going to be a smart city.
Well said. Thank you very much. I think we can conclude that smart city is all about smart grid technologies, smart buildings, intelligent transportation, distribution, energy resources, smart waste collection, urban planning, data sharing, and most importantly, the human. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. I wish this will change our perspective on our future. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.